Hey, I'm Bernie from the Young Makers, and this is part 2 of trying to build a folding knife. At the end of part 1, I mentioned that I was going to try and make a Sharpie mount for the Avid, and it sort of worked, sort of didn't. I had problems with it continuously drawing and then just stopping, but I think that I'm just going to abandon that. I think I'm just going to trace the scale onto the liners, and that'll work a lot better, and it'll be a lot simpler. So the next step is remaking the scales with with some slots. I found some hardware at my house that I think is going to work super good for this. So let's try to do that. Alright, so when I was making these prototypes, I didn't really make the holes to a specific dimension, and this hole was still from the same size of a piece I tried to prototype on the metal lathe, but now I just brought it back into Aspire. I made a new file, I just copied it, and now I'm just going to modify the holes so that way the bolts will fit through them, and I'm also going to counterbore for the heads, and on the back side I'm going to make slots for these square nuts, and let's try and do that. Alright, we've made some advancements. These nuts, square nuts, fit in here very nicely. And then the screws can get screwed on from the back side. The liners and blade. So I'll have the blade be pivoting on this screw, and then this screw will be the stop that the pin the blade registers on. So this is all looking super nice. I use the same tolerances for the counter bores on the screw heads as I did for the nuts, so I'm assuming it should fit really nice. I only brought 4 screws, but I'll get another one for tomorrow. So through the power of YouTube, I have the other side of the scales. I have the other scale, and now I'm going to clean it up off camera, and then we can test fit it on the right side. The head of the screw fits perfectly. I use the same tolerance as the nut, so that's good. Alright, this looks pretty good, so I'm just going to trace it a little outside the line. One of the benefits of the design of this workbench is that there's a ridge all around, so you can clamp to this bench anywhere. And if you're interested in the design for this bench, there are plans on the Young Makers website, and I'll leave a link in the description, so go check those out. Alright, so we got our piece, and I'm using my firm grip gloves that I got from WorkbenchCon to handle it because I made the mistake too many times of trying to pick up something that I just cut, and I burnt myself. So now what we can do is I can find my scale. I'm going to double stick tape it to this piece, and then I can drill the holes and I can grind it to the scale. so this actually turned out really nice. Cutting the scale in the CNC and then grinding the liner to it, that made it super nice, and I know that both liners and scales are going to match. So I accidentally did not save the file from after I cut the square counterbores and modified the holes and like boring operations. So if anybody asks, this was a prototype and definitely wasn't going to be the final liner. Well, that's all the time we have for episode 2. On episode 3, I'm going to try to start to glue up some material to make the final scales, and we're also going to remake the liners and try to start wrapping this thing up. If you're not already, please subscribe and turn on post notifications to get notified when the next part of this series comes out, and I'll see you then.